So we are beginning our webinar. It is called Teaching to Beat Climate Change. And today we have very esteemed speakers, 4 of them. Perhaps I will now give the word to Ms. Natalia Amelina with a short introduction about today's webinar.
Okay, dear colleagues, welcome to our webinar on climate change. My name is Natalia Amelina. I am a chief of the Teacher Professional Development and Networking Unit of the UNESCO Institute for Information Technologies in Education. And today we will discuss, I would say, a very hot topic. Why we need to speak about the climate change, why we need to make actions in the agenda to reflect something about teaching and learning. Climate change is one of the most pressing priorities of the international community, and the role of education is increasingly recognized. In light of the dramatic changes in the world is facing, there is a need to strengthen the integration of environmental issues into education in member states. The world has long acknowledged the need to harness the power of education to meet sustainable development challenges, but there is still not yet systemic education resources on climate change, biodiversity, and environment. Teachers are at the forefront of ensuring learners of all ages have the knowledge, skills, values, and initiative to act to address the climate crisis. This year, our institute confirmed its commitment towards contributing to the aspirations of the Greening Education Partnership. And the goal is to support education professionals, particularly educational specialists who are working in schools and teacher technical and vocational education and training through the integration of ICT-based climate education in education training curricula, thus building the capacity of the wider educational workforce in the areas of climate change and environmental risks, green and climate responsive skills, economy and green transition, inclusive and sustainable living and development. I'm also happy to inform you that currently our institute is working on the online course, I would say crash online course for TVET teachers or teachers of the technical and vocational education and training. We hope that this course will be ready during the summer, this summer, and we all invite you to look through our website to get the news about its launch. And this course will be aimed on promoting ICTs, information and communication technologies, and even artificial intelligence for greening TVET. So if this topic is interesting, we're inviting you. The course will be uploaded to eLibrary. eLibrary is a special place at IITE platform to encourage teachers to get more knowledge and skills and to have networking. Today, we have a great opportunity to discuss with you the challenges related to teaching and learning for sustainable development and climate change. And I'm very glad to see that several, I would say, leading experts in this area agreed to take part in our webinar. Thank you very much for our experts for this opportunity to discuss this topic with you. And back to you, Tatiana.
Thank you very much, Natalia. And here, ladies and gentlemen, here you can see the agenda for today's webinar. The time is Central European time, so for many of us, the time is different. But here you can see the topics of the presentations and the names of the esteemed speakers. So the first speaker is going to be Dr. Virendra Rawat, who will tell us about, who will give us an introduction to teaching about how to beat climate change. The next speaker is going to be Dr. Debra Rowe. And her presentation will be dedicated to education for green jobs. Then Dr. Morrison will tell us about structural supports for just climate change and sustainability learning. And finally, Ms. Anastasia Makrushina will give us some very, very practical examples and speak about digital tools for organizing climate education in Russian schools. But of course, this experience can be extrapolated to many other regions and countries. This is the plan for our today's meeting, and we are about to start. Dr. Rawat, I'm now going to share my screen, and the floor is yours. We cannot hear you, sadly. Can you? Dr. Rawat, can you unmute, switch on your mic?
Yes. Is I'm audible to now?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Yes, sorry for delay. Thank you so much for inviting me for a webinar on teaching to beat climate change. And I have presented, sent a presentation to Tatiana to show on the screen, but I am just now traveling to Himalaya in India. So I am on the way and I'm just now in my car. So I'll just share the presentation. But I'll just share my story how India and how we are doing the activities that allow school to beat the climate change. So first of all, what climate change is and why it is very pressing issue and worldwide, how it is influencing our life and how education can only solve this global challenge. In India, we believe that education is the solution of all challenges of the world, including the climate change. Educator has the power to change the world, and educator has the power to beat the climate change. So India is the only country, India, Chile, and Colombia, there are 3 countries, they have given right to river, not to pollute them. And this is the first time happening in the world. There are countries who are giving right to the river, not to pollute them and protect themselves. So I'm coming back to my schools and classroom, how we can inspire the next generation to prepare themselves to beat the climate change. And I'm very much thankful to UNESCO and especially IITE, those who are thinking and reaching out to every part of the world and igniting the educator and innovators to beat the climate change. What we do here in India is that first we conceive that what are the impact, how climate change is influencing us, and how we can integrate it into the curriculum. So we have decided to work on the 5 elements. 5 elements, the first element is earth. So first we need to preserve our soil. Earth belongs to stability. if you want to stable world, we need to first preserve the soil. We need to know what is the soil, how it works, what is organism, how we are hurting the soil. And if we continue to hurt the soil, we may not have the food for the next generation. So we bring a lot of activities associated with the soil, and the soil testing, soil preservation, soil organism, and lot of activity we do into the classroom, and we connect soil into our curriculum system. And the screen is showing now about SDG 13.3. It is all about the climate change education. And schools are only the entities who are doing this work, while this work should be supported by, promoted by the local government or state government or other national government. Unfortunately, this was the least priority in the most of countries. And while this need to be the big priority. So in India, since the climate education is associated with our culture, so we preserve our nature on our own way. We consider tree as a god, we consider stone as a god, we consider sand as a god, and we pray them. And whenever even we cross the river, we take away our shoes. So to not to pollute, we have no right to pollute the water in any situation. So we bring this cultural understanding into education, and then we connect into the classroom. We as a green mentor, our organization is bringing the climate education in the life of every child, and we do it through our green school network. We have around 2,000 green schools and universities, and these schools and universities accept the accountability of future of their students and responsibility of their local environment. These universities and school campus are totally independent. They don't use the water from the municipality. They produce the air, whatever their requirement. So every green school has at least one mature tree against 4 students. So if you have one mature tree against 4 students, it means you are producing the oxygen that your student is required. So you have the zero impact in the local environment. And second, the water. Water has to be stored, used, reused, purified in the school campus only. And we should not, because we should have no right to use the groundwater, because groundwater belongs to the plants. And we have no right to use the water which belongs to the plants. We have, God gives us water in the form of rain, in the form of the rivers, in the form of the pond, and we have to use it. And India is the largest country. There is Himalaya, there is oceans, and there is a lot of type of biodiversity and geographical biodiversity. And because of that, we understand from one state to other state, and we can connect one experience to other state experience, and that help us to understand the world better. Presently, the slide of the Earth is going on. Earth is all about the soil. It represents stability, and the water is symbolize the adaptability, flow, and flexibility. And we bring all this element in classroom. We learn what water teaches us and what we can learn from the water. Water, we consider water as an educator to us. We consider earth as an educator to us. And what is the element of earth and how we can learn from it, and how we can help others not to hurt the earth anymore. India, we have one Sadhguru who has launched the soils preservation campaign across the world, and Save Soil campaigns, and that is working everywhere. And now the most of the farmer is going to the organics. Second, the water is coming energy. Energy is about the power, innovation. And we believe that if every house, every school, every university must have its own renewable source of energy. It should not use any fossil fuel based energy, coal based energy. So every school, whether we have green school, green university, they have their solar power plant or wind power plants, and that produce the energy of their requirement. So their energy requirement have no impact on the local environment. Their water requirement has no impact on the local environment. Their soil is preserved, organic, or the microorganism of the soil is maintained. And then, if you can show me next slide, air quality. Air quality means we should have enough air quality, enough mature tree that gives us the oxygen, and they take our carbon dioxide and take it to the soil. So trees are the only machine on the planet that take your carbon dioxide directly to the soil. And we have to plant more tree, and more tree. More tree means more life. So this is the way we do. We do a lot of activity. Students are connected with the mostly I'll give you example of the urban area school. Urban area school have not much land. We cannot teach them much how to gardening, how to preserve the soil. What we do that, we take them into the remote area land, and we give them 5 square meter land to every child. So that the student grow the vegetables and of their choice, of the plants, everything on that 5 square meter, and they take the fruits or the vegetable from that 5 square meter to their home and share it to other people also.
Excuse me, you have 1 minute left. I'm sorry.
1 minute. Yes. So I'll not take much. Now I'll go to next. How to communicate with the animals? How to understand the body language animals? The moment we understand the body language animals, I'm sure that we respect them more. And how to communicate with the plants? So we have taught our students about the communicating with the animals, communicating with the plant, and we have the climate decision center in every school where the student learn how to take decision to preserve the climate change. Thank you very much. I think I'm on time. Presentation was long, but I've cut it very short.
Thank you. You are on time, indeed. Dear audience, are there any questions to Dr. Rawat? Perhaps I can show the rest of the presentation.
Yes.
What would you say to this?
Yes, please.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The Earth, it is interdependence. The space is interdependence. So interdependence means our dependency, our happiness is based on our biodiversity. If animal will be there, we will be there. If there is no animal, we may not be there. So we have to teach interdependency on the planet. So we use space as a tool to teach a student about interdependency. Then we have designed the pedagogy, the climate pedagogy, climate evaluation system, and climate education monitoring system. We do a lot of innovation every day, and that help us to understand the mother nature better, and that help us to respond to local environment in more better way. And we consider our Earth is our campus. If our campus is beautiful, sustainable, and no impact on the environment, so then we can replicate it anywhere in the world. Because our capacity, we only control our campus. So we take care of that only. So we have.
I'm going through your presentation, and I do hope that there will be questions.
Yeah.
Let us have a look. So green curriculum. And would you perhaps say a few words about the activities mentioned here on this slide?
Especially in the slide, there are common activities of co-curricular activity, but we focus on the water and soil more because the energy, most of the schools are already doing a lot of activity in the renewals, but soil is still not addressed as much as it is required to be addressed. So we especially soil testing. Soil organism is a core in our co-curricular activity, and as well as the green games. So green games are indigenous games. So these indigenous game has no impact on the local environment. It impacts your health. It makes your health more healthy. So it helps your and through the green games you can understand the local culture and you can communicate with the local environment. So in my country, we play the soccer, the football and cricket, and it is the most toxic game because it requires a lot of energy. But our indigenous game, Kho-Kho, Kabaddi, they doesn't require any kind of energy. We can play it anywhere, anytime, and we can keep ourselves healthy and fit. So we request every educator to please promote the indigenous games and climate systems. A lot of things we do that.
Thank you. There is a question from Ksenia.
Hello, thank you.
Yes,
I am a participant from Armenia, High School 101, and much question, but as for activities, we are planning project work is called Peace Garden. And of course, our school and our parents support us. And you said about the water amount. At school, we have water reservoirs, but they are not very enough for that. We're enthusiastically going to work for the whole territory of the school. And how can we have more reservoirs of water? Whom to call for that?
See, the campus, school campus, that belongs to you. So you have the full power to use that. The rain comes in the form, the water comes in the form of nature. You need to store. It should be zero water discharge from your campus. Whatever rain comes in your campus, it should be stored either in the recharging well or either in the underground tanks. And it should be used, reused, and recycled and purified naturally, not by using chemicals. And it makes a student more healthy. And in my school in Ahmedabad, students take the school water to home because it's more natural and it has more minerals than they have the water purifier at home. Because we use the charcoal and lime and sand to purify the water. We are not using any chemicals and machines to purify the water. So that makes water more healthy and more better. So every school must be zero discharge of water. And that make your water surplus school. And I'm sure that you don't need to depend from anyone. Mother Nature gives enough to everyone.
Yes,
and
of course.
But problem is that Mother Nature doesn't give more to our greed. Mother Nature gives everything enough to our need, but not to our greed. So we need to focus on the need. I'm sure that if you restore maximum rainwater, you will have the water surplus in school. So thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Rawat, for your presentation. And I'm afraid we have to move on. And it's time for the next speaker, Dr. Debra Rowe. You're welcome. Education for Green Jobs.
Great, thank you. I'm very glad to be here. I'm putting on my timer, so I will stay within my time. And actually, I'm speaking on both topics of how do we teach to beat climate change? How do we teach about climate change and sustainability? And then also education for green jobs. So half on each. So I've been a professor of renewable energy technology, energy management, sustainable development for 42 years. And have helped colleges and universities around the world, as well as high schools, integrate this into their education and teaching. Thank you for the previous presentation. I want to today focus on how we educate our students and our public to participate in decisions, not just sitting around and talking, but actually improving quality of life now and making sure we're not damaging the planet for the future. And in order to do that, they have to be taught more than knowledge, right? As you heard in the previous speaker, they need to be taught change maker skills, and not just for their individual lifestyle, but for the society as a whole, for the organization they're working in. We wrote a chapter on this in a book about how that we've done analysis showing that these are the kinds of skills employers value. So you can justify this to the decision makers of curricula. Look, if you look at where climate and education for sustainable development fits in, it is obvious in technology courses, right? There's all sorts of new technologies that are now cost effective, from solar to heat pumps, energy efficiency, but it's less obvious that it also fits into political science, for example. I mean, all academic areas have a unique and important role to play in education for a sustainable future. So when I go to an education institution and help the teachers, and I don't travel as much anymore because of all the work I'm doing, so I'm glad to give all of this away and others can do it as well. We find that education for sustainable development, climate solutions, fits into psychology, physics, biology, chemistry, economics, etc. I'm not going to go over all the details on these slides. These are examples of how teachers are doing that. And you're going to get these slides. So I really encourage you to read through them. It'll give you lots of ideas of how you can integrate it into the concepts you have to teach anyway in these courses. Remember, there is no energy discipline, so it has to fit into the other academic areas. There is no climate discipline. That also, we have to integrate this in across all academic areas. So the other thing is to use the school campus and also the community. And when you get really good at it, you can also do it planet-wide as a living lab for climate and sustainable development solutions. And these are just examples of what people have already done. They've helped streamline for employers and potential employers. They've built market demand and helped students envision positive scenarios for the future, and then bring in a positive futures fair that's open to the public, and really help change people's career trajectory to be about climate solutions. They work with all stakeholders and educating the public too around necessary policy and how to weigh in. The key emphasis here is not to just give out knowledge and give a test on it or a paper, but to do real world applied projects so students can practice being change makers. And so what I've listed for you is what has come out of the numerous workshops that we've done and what teachers are doing already who teach in these different areas. So once again, you can read about it, whether it's becoming energy ambassadors, whether it's doing energy audits for a local nonprofit, whether it's climate adaptation. There's so many different examples. So you can see these are in the different areas of classes that students may have and how they can do real world problem solving. From contributing to a city's climate action plan, its implementation, its evaluation, and this can be done in high school too. We have seen great projects in high school and TVETs and universities. We had a grant a few years ago, and we had the STEM societies, so science, technology, engineering, and math, those associations. We put together a wonderful website. We encourage you to go to it. It shows how teaching about sustainability improves student learning across the board. And we have key components of what makes a good sustainability assignment. You can see there that there's hundreds of learning activities, etc. But there's also a self-assessment that the students can take on being a change maker or a change agent. And so we found that to be very helpful for students to build a self-concept of being a change agent, and then look at the skills that they can develop to help them be even more successful at it. In terms of assignments, it's really important that students get taught without the doom and gloom. Yes, there is some doom and gloom with climate change, but don't stop there, for goodness sakes, because then you just make students depressed and anxious. And this is truly a problem. Focus on solutions and empower the students to take positive actions, moving from just analysis to systemic action and change. There's a broad literature now on sustainability education and what are the key competencies that we want for those outcomes. This is a wonderful paper that really summarizes a lot of what's going on in the literature. You see the link there, and I put up the list of key competencies that they've identified. Our students need to be able to envision a positive future with the interpersonal and intrapersonal skills to make it happen. So this is going on across the world. And of course, this isn't just in curricula. We're seeing at educational organizations that it's all these different areas where we're integrating climate mitigation, adaptation, and sustainability. So for more resources, visit this site. Just go to uspartnership.org. We have a K-12 page. We have a higher ed page. It's not comprehensive of everything, but there's a lot there that you can benefit from. I want the second half of what I talk about today to talk about education for green jobs. So we've been working with multiple UN agencies, actually about 10 United Nations agencies, nonprofits, employer organizations, World Bank, other experts. And we've recognized there's a core challenge, which is we need to provide the workers for these green economy employers that are very busy trying to help prevent the worst impacts of climate change. And they don't have the time to reach out. We need to welcome them and make it easy for them to find the employees that they need, and also the educated public. So we've been working on curricular upgrades, career guidance materials, recruitment processes and job placements, and also how to make research more relevant and useful to the practitioners. So I encourage you to go to that HESI Compact Fellows Action Tips. HESI is about 10 UN agencies, a bunch of networks for education for sustainability, all working together. And I run 2 action groups there. You can see more information on these links. We also have a solution summit coming up on July 6th. I strongly encourage you to register for that. Just go to tinyurl.com/solutionsummit4. And we have a key resources document we put together for you. We've been working with the Clean Energy Ministerial on this, and we have an action plan template. How do you be more effective, not only in the classroom, but also beyond in building collaborations for this? We have a LinkedIn group and a listserv that you can join. So those are your next steps. Some of them, there are more on these slides. At our last Solution Summit, we had somebody from PACE, that's for UN agencies. They have a free e-learning series, free curricula. And so you have the links there. And then we also have a Green Learning Network where you can join, and there's all sorts of action items, but also knowledge items that you can benefit from and contribute to. So we've already convened the TVET educators. We want to continue to do that more, hopefully with UNESCO and other groups like we are today. We've convened the employers. We did a skills gap survey. We helped Irina with that. We've also worked on recruitment. We've worked on research alignment, curricular upgrades. And then just recently, this is a presentation I made a few days ago, but it reflects what we're doing with the Clean Energy Ministerial. It's for all countries, where we're understanding the gaps, we're sharing successes, we're overcoming barriers. That link right there will be very useful to you. And we've had great speakers. We have a toolkit we're just putting out now. You can see all the different kinds of attendees we've had. We have over 100 countries registered. This is the event on July 6th, which I recommend that you join us. And we're not just doing what I've already listed as the topics here of recruitment, career advising, curricular, job placement, but we're also working on making sure it's inclusive, with marginalized populations being included with special outreach and wraparound services. And also that while we're doing this focus here on clean energy transition, that we're also changing the organizational and societal systems that are broken, the pieces that are broken that we need to fix to create a more sustainable future. So as speakers, just a few more seconds, we'll go to questions. We've had the chair of the board of the Global Wind Organization who provided standards for learning tasks and curricula. We've had presented the International Jobs Platform, which also lists skills, which was a gift from Solar Power Europe to the world, and it also is a matchmaker for jobs. If you haven't joined yet, join the Energy Transition Education Network. This is free curricula for K-12 on renewable energies that'll be available at the end of this summer. There's a whole network for there. And also cities have organized, ICLEI, a wonderful organization, to bring the capacity of higher education and also cities to work with educators to meet human needs, fix systems, and work on climate solutions. So we're really working on coordinating across sectors of society that oftentimes silo and don't talk to each other. And remember your next steps after today. I'll put some of these in the chat as we go along so that you can get to them right away. You have the power. We can choose a sustainable future. Thank you. I'm open to questions if you have any.
Thank you so much for the presentation and for the timing, for providing the links. And yes, like you said, the presentation will be circulated after the webinar. So everybody will have a chance to click on the links and check out all the sources, all the many, many sources that you have provided. Ladies and gentlemen, your questions, your comments?
I'm just showing you some websites. This is the K-12 website for U.S. partnership. Here's the higher education site. The first thing you saw was the information about all those resources I talked about with the clean energy transition and the education for green jobs. So any questions? I can see things. I don't know if there's anything in the chat except thank yous. Thank you.
Only thank yous, no questions so far. Does this mean that we can move on?
So if you have no questions, so the only other thing that I think you might want to do is just look at all of the links that are in the chat. I'll put them in there, but also to look at the slides that are going to be available with the recording. And thank you. Please step outside of your normal job description. Our job descriptions aren't complete enough for the work we need to do at this urgent time. My job started as just a TVET instructor. I loved it for all those years. And then I went in and worked with universities, with high schools, and with networks across my country and then across the world. And you all can do that too. And if you're not sure how, let us know. If you're interested in being a fellow, we have fellows programs where people volunteer a few hours a week, and they have much larger impacts than just in the day job that they have oftentimes. And we can help empower you with that. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Very, very inspiring. And thus we are moving on, and it's time for our next speaker. And Dr. Deb Morrison, you're welcome. Structural supports for just climate change and sustainability learning. Will you be keeping track of time yourself, or?
Yes, I have us as about 5 minutes behind our schedule. Would you like me to try and just?
We are a bit. Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's go ahead here. So good morning, everyone. It's very early out here on the west coast of North America. Happy to be here with you all today. So I thought what I would do today to kind of ground us in some of the work, I think it actually fits well flowing from the previous two speakers. So thank you very much for the work that everybody has been doing. Is I thought I would give a very grounded example in work that I've been doing for the last 5 years in Washington State. So we're going to sort of talk at the very high level for one slide and then go deep into an example and come back out to a general level. So one of the things that Dr. Rowe just referred to was this idea of these frameworks, these broad frameworks of skills and sets that we're trying to understand as we think about designing learning environments. And what I think about when I think of those is these interconnected frameworks of learning. So we want to understand what it is that we're learning when we think about actual people on the ground doing that action work, trying to develop new careers, think about lifelong trajectories of learning. And those are what we would think of as axiological or epistemological frameworks for learning. So it's the what of learning, right? We all want to know what it is that we're learning, the curriculum that we're diving into, the skill sets. And there are a couple emerging different frameworks around that. The one that Dr. Rowe showed actually is amazing. And thinking about how that connects with other frameworks is something that many researchers and practitioners around the world are working out right now. But to do that, you also need two other types of learning. You need to help everyone in the system who's teaching people to do new careers and teaching policymakers to do those things. You need to help them learn. So that's professional learning frameworks. And then you also need to think about how people learn, which is pedagogical frameworks. And so as we start to think about whole systems of learning, we need to not only think about what is being learned, but about how it's being learned and how we're supporting those who are doing that move in the system. So to get this really like out of the, theoretical frame and try to get it really grounded, I thought I would talk about the Washington State Climb Time effort. And as has been mentioned by other speakers, we will be sharing slides, but I've also put a link in the chat to the entire slide deck, and you are welcome to explore the virtual slide deck. And in the notes section, it has all the links for these different efforts that I'm talking about. So Washington State is a subnational entity inside the United States. Like many places in North America, which are both Canada and the US are federal systems, the state level or provincial level has a lot of authority for doing education in the K-12 area. And so one of the things that is really important to understand about that is that money and decisions are really made at that level. So in 2017, a large coalition of people got together and lobbied the state government for funding. And so in 2018, there was $4 million provided to the state level effort to lift what climate learning looked like in the state. And that has been reasonably consistent for the past 5 years. So that type of sustained funding is critical to ensuring that the whole system, whatever it is, be it TVET, be it green jobs, whatever it is moving in the right direction, because you have to get that kind of sustained learning and relationship building across the system. So what does that look like, right? So this is kind of a timeline from the beginning of the initiative to now as it expands and creates more resources. And so there are a number of different examples here of what it means to do the work. So we don't just produce curriculum in a space and deliver that curriculum. We have to help people who are delivering the curriculum understand and learn from each other as well. And so a lot of the resources that are developed inside the effort are vision sort of examples of what people are doing in different contexts and how they're doing it. And when they're having troubles, we share those troubles and we problem solve them, and we develop new resources to help people address what the challenge is and overcome it as a professional learning provider, as an educator, as a policy developer inside the system. We also pull resources in from outside of Washington State. So from Education for Sustainable Development at UNESCO, from Learning in Places work, which is indigenous pedagogies that have been used all across North America and are starting to be used more globally. And we share and think about how to use those locally, how to contextualize them and make them meaningful for the people that we serve. We also share outward. So we write examples of what we're doing and try to share them outward so people can actually learn from us and with us as we're learning. So we don't wait for everything to be perfect. Perfect is definitely not what we're all going for. We're going for the next step of the work and how collectively to do better. This is a collaborative effort. As both of the prior speakers have talked about, anytime you're doing this type of work, you're trying to bring together really diverse participants into a coalition of work. You're trying to get shared vision about how you're doing this work, and then thinking carefully about the practical aspects of doing it. So when we're looking at a local scale of work, we're bringing in business, we're bringing in government, we're bringing, even though it's K-12 education, we're using that K-12 education to center community-wide climate action and sustainable work. And so as we're doing that, we're helping foster new ways of thinking about K-12 education, thinking about career and technical learning trajectories, and inform those broader national and international frameworks of what are the skill sets that need to be fostered, what, systems thinking, critical literacy, cooperative engagement with each other. This is the type of work that is happening at the local scale to start to inform those broader examples and learn from them. So when you come back out again, all of the things I've just talked about are called infrastructuring. They're creating these resource bases that help people do that implementation work at a local scale. There was a really great paper a few years ago called The Powers of 10, and it was talking about the scale at which we do implementation work. So we learn across many different networks and networks of networks, but we actually implement at particular scales because we know each other, we're in relationship with each other, we can actually do that work. That idea of learning across networks of networks is called not working. And so we need that infrastructure. We need the US Partnership for Sustainable Education. We need the UNESCO work on greening education partnerships. Because those networks help us do exactly what we're doing today, which is share across large areas the innovations and examples of practice that are starting to emerge and the resources that we're building within them. We don't necessarily want to take those resources and do exactly the same thing in India as we would do in Washington State, but we want to share and exchange that type of learning so that we can all accelerate what we're doing in climate action and sustainability. So thank you so much for having me today. And I'm happy to answer individual questions, but I'm also happy to follow up with folks and just reach out and connect. And I usually direct you to the plethora of other people doing the work because we are such a broad international, community in this effort. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the presentation and for sharing so many resources and so much information. Ladies, gentlemen, any questions, any comments? Anything you would like to know? Everyone seems to be overwhelmed with the amount of resources provided by.
I have a question.
Fantastic.
The question that I have for Deb is, how do you not be overwhelmed and just start moving, right? Stop trying to be perfect. Stop trying to have to read everything first because it's too urgently needed that we implement these solutions. So what do you suggest for people who are like, whoa, this is too much. How do I fit this in?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that we're doing in the Climb Time effort right now is we realize we've been doing the work for 5 years and people lean in and ask us that question. So we're producing a research paper about the effort more deeply, but as part of our own sort of obligation responsibility to help forwarding the work internationally is we're producing a toolkit of systemic change at the same time. So, and that toolkit has things like, how do you actually just figure out who's already doing things? So an action network mapping kit. And there are other resources like this around, but we thought we'd just coalesce our own story of how we've done our work. And so, and point to some of the tools that are existing in the world. So one of the things that we actually think people should do is, as you're working in a local system, like really think about who, like take a moment and map out who's doing what, and then pull those people together so you're not reproducing efforts. And then just what's the next step? So plan that shared vision. What's the next step you're going to do? Do you need to pull in funding, other partners, and then just take that step? It can be a baby step. It doesn't matter. But just to take that next step together. And it's a lot easier to do that when you're doing it in those partnership and collaboration spaces.
Thanks. I really appreciate that. And just one thing that I would add that I say, which is start teaching it. Just start getting it into your classroom right away. Students will give you feedback. You'll learn, you'll think about it afterwards, you'll change it around, but we can't leave it out of the classroom anymore.
No, not at all. And we
actually
actually
excited. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, and we actually have that's part of the really cool work of doing this at a teacher level effort, is we have educators just innovating and trying all sorts of things in practice and then learning from each other and cross-pollinating right away. So it's just like, let's try something and try something else tomorrow and just keep learning.
Thank you. We have a question from Anastasia.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. And I would like to ask the question. I'm really interested. You mentioned that you're building an infrastructure for the education for the climate change education. And what is the reaction of teachers to get this professional training? Because it needs extra time, yes, and the teachers are often overloaded. Is it integrated somehow into the general professional training for teachers, or is it something extra? And how do the teachers react? Would you please comment on this?
Yeah, I'm actually currently in Portland in Oregon and doing a professional learning tomorrow and the next day. And one of the things that we do is we actually say, we're not trying to say that you have to teach a new or different curriculum. We're teaching people how to take their existing curriculum and weave into it everything that are those skills, those competencies that we're looking for. Ideally, we will be at a point in 5 years from now where all the curriculum shifted that way. But in the interim, we're doing exactly what Dr. Rowe was just talking about. Like, we're just taking a step, right? So like, what's the next step that we can take tomorrow? And so the professional learning, we're lucky in Washington State because we actually have extensive funding for teachers to come in and be paid to do the professional learning. But we also understand that, you know, we want to make sure it's not one more thing, but it's about how to work smarter and more integrated in your existing work.
Thank you.
Thanks. I do not see any more people willing to ask questions. So I suppose this is the time to move to our last speaker, and it is Anastasia, the one who just asked the question. And her presentation is going to be dedicated to digital tools for organizing ESD and climate education in Russian schools. Anastasia, you're welcome. Would you be keeping track of time, or?
I think my slides are just for 10 minutes, but if I'm over the time, please let me know and I will stop. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, dear colleagues. My name is Anastasia, as I was introduced already, and today I'm going to make a presentation on digital tools that are used by Russian teachers for organizing ESD and climate change education. Thank you, previous colleagues, for very good framework and the main concepts of climate change education. And in my presentation, I will maybe go a little bit into details and into instruments that may be adapted and taken already today into teaching experience, teaching activities. And now I would like to share a little bit of background why I have this right to speak on the behalf of the teachers who are actually the authors of pedagogical ICT supported practices that will be introduced today later on. in spring 2023, as a researcher, I took part in a big project that was aimed at identifying the status quo of ICT competencies in Russian schools and supporting capacity building on promoting ICT for SDG number 4, quality education. I was interviewing teachers, and I collected 27 ICT supported innovative pedagogical practices with a focus on gender equality, climate change, global partnership, and inclusion. And today I'm going to share a few of them. Based on these practices, I moderated 2 webinars, and one of them was devoted to digital teacher tools to organize ESG and climate change education. And also these practices became a part of an analytical review that contains description of these practices in the form of cases, pedagogical cases that may be adapted, that contains also the overview of identified trends in ESD in Russia, and also it has recommendations and conclusions to wider aligning SDGs and climate change education agenda. I'm going to present few practices in a form of cases and good practices that were presented during the webinars. Of course, not all of them, but still something. ICT supported practices on climate change education. And the first practice is connected with using the potential of online educational resources. One of this resource is ecoclass.rf. This is an internet platform with complex educational materials for teachers, and it contains elaborated lesson plans on various aspects of sustainable development and sustainable development goals, such as life on land or life below water, clean energy, responsible consumption, climate change, etc. And any teacher can register on the platform and can get access to more than 40 lesson plans, to media materials, videos, posters, printable templates for all age levels. And here on a slide, you may see the picture of the lesson for the students of the 5th grade in a small village in one of the Russian regions. And it became possible because the teacher registered on this platform, and the teacher used the animated video materials and printable templates to teach about SDGs and individual actions to foster sustainable development. The portal also provides teachers with online support and all supplementary materials needed to give a lesson without much effort. There is also a project map, online map, that collects all the schools that take part in the initiatives that either organize an environmental lesson or took part in online challenges or interregional green competitions. And also the portal contains e-handbooks or guidelines on how to organize a green school, not only on the level of education, but also on the level of waste or energy management, greening of the school territories, etc. that are also available online, and they can be downloaded and printed out. The next ICT supported practice is using digital laboratories for improving environmental skills. What is digital laboratory? It is an innovative educational equipment for research. It provides students with experimental studying experience in the classroom. And in our case, I will present a digital laboratory for ecology studies that was used in order to organize extracurricular activities in one of the schools. Here on the picture, you may see it is in action. Now you can see how it actually looks like, this digital lab. This is a set of sensors. It is a special equipment, and students may collect the data, the equipment may process the data and transmits the information to the laptops, and the students are working with the laptops later on. And through this practical measuring of water or aerial environment parameters, students learn about environmental issues such as air pollution or soil pollution or water or noise pollution. And this knowledge and skills may be used later on by the teachers to organize individual or group research projects. And this is actually the practical learning that works. Another way to use ICT potential is organizing web quests on education for sustainable development. Here you can see on the slide the project of annual web quests aimed at engaging young people into hands-on climate change activities and teaching sustainability. The organizers invite teams from different educational institutions and regions. And the web quest technology may be adapted for primary, secondary, high or vocational education, and the tasks of the web quest, the challenges, may be also integrated into school curriculum or extracurricular activities. The project is functioning since 2017, and there were web quests on the topics such as water, forests, climate action, specially protected natural areas, etc. How it works. After the registration, participants join the project community in the social media, where they get the challenges from the organizers, where they get the tasks from the organizers, where they post the pictures of completing the tasks, and organizers inform about the team's ratings or the results of the web quest. Climate change, as it was already said, is an interdisciplinary issue, and it requires multidisciplinary cooperation and various skills. And the next ICT supported practice was presented by a literature teacher. And it is about taking digital notes when working with texts or when working with stories on the lessons in order to improve environmental learning and digital literacy skills. When working with one of the stories on the lesson, the teacher was puzzled by the fact that her students had very vague idea of the biodiversity and didn't know how certain species or herbs looked like. And she decided to suggest her students not only to read the texts, but also to take these digital notes to all the names of the species or all the names of the geographical objects that were mentioned by the author in the texts. The students should use computer office programs for taking digital notes. First, they need to take a quote from the story with the mentioning of a new word, then to find out and pick up few pictures from the internet to illustrate this word. And while working in such a manner, students not only learn about biodiversity and geographical objects, but they also learn about the copyright when using images and working with the information from the internet. Thus, this simple tool is may be applied. It's very simple, really, and may be applied to any text. It deepens students' knowledge on the topic and also develops digital literacy skills. And
It
the
is
last
time. I apologize. So.
Okay, then I will skip the last case, and maybe it will be, you can Google it and or ask me later on in the discussion. I just would like to thank you for the attention, and I'm open to the question, and I'm ready to continue the discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Perhaps as the first question, maybe you will tell us about the very last practice that you wanted to mention.
Yes, if very briefly, it's just 1 minute. The very last practice is it's called Invite a Scientist, and it was the initiative of one of the universities in the country, and it actually it matches students with scientists. There is a list of scientists that are available, let's say, from the university, scientists, professionals in different fields, and the teacher may contact the organizers and choose the professional and connect the scientists, invite the scientists to their classrooms virtually in the form of video conferences. And this is a great chance for the students, especially from rural areas or with fewer opportunities, to learn from the professionals. And on the slide there in my presentation, there was an online lesson, environmental lesson on the topic of the climate change. So the students got a chance to meet a scientist and also have their questions answered. So it's very broad in the horizons and allows to dive deeper into the topic. As a tool, it's also very inspiring for the young learners. Yes.
Thank you so much. Any more questions or comments to the presentation? Perhaps you have done something similar at your school, at your university.
Can I add one quick thing to that?
Absolutely, sure.
Thank you so much for this. Yes, we did a project out in Maine with rural students on the East Coast, sort of remote areas of North America. And we had these local sort of weather scientists come in virtually to classrooms, or had students go out to these remote weather stations and work with scientists. And it was really terrific for being able to build that kind of role model and interaction. We did find we had to work with the scientists or carefully choose them so that they could communicate with youth. And I'm just curious if you, like, what kind of work you might be doing with scientists to help and support their communication skills around that, or if you're just like careful about picking which scientists you're doing that with.
Thank you for the question. Actually, I was presented the practices that are used by the teachers. And as I've mentioned, in this very particular project that is called Invite the Scientists, this is the university that provides the teachers with the list of the scientists, like their professionals, their scientists, and they are professionals in various topics: chemistry, biology, physics, environmental science, etc., etc. And the teacher decides what topic to pick up and what scientists to invite. So it's actually up to the teacher and to the topic how he or she integrates it into curriculum. So yes.
Thank you. Anything else? So we are done with the presentations for today, but perhaps there are questions or general comments to what we have heard today. Maybe the participants, I don't know, would like to share something that they do in their schools and their universities, or the ways how they see they can accommodate what has been presented today to their classes, to their classrooms. So any input? Yes, there is a question from Zhenya.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for presentation. I doesn't have a question, but I want to say something that this topic is very important for us. And I want to thank you for digital tools, for all the resources that you provide us. It's important because I think that environmental education is a process that allows individuals to explore environmental issues and engage in problem solving. Take action to improve the environment. As a result, maybe individuals develop a deeper understanding of environmental issues and have the skills to make improved and responsible decisions. That's why it's very important, and it's very important to teach them. And I thank you very I want to thank you very much because it's very must and important topic for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comment. There is a question from Ani. You're welcome.
Yes, hello everyone. I'm Ani from Armenia. First, again, I want to thank as the last time for smiley faces, for happy faces, and thank you for all the presentations. Thanks a lot. I want just to share our experience. I live in Venedor, it's the third largest city in Armenia, and our school is not so big, but we have a garden in which our students plant some vegetables and then they pick them up and eat them. So they understand the importance of nature every year, and they are very happy to work in the garden. They understand what the garden is, what the nature is, and how the nature helps us to live, and how we help the nature to live. Yeah. Also, this year we have a lot of rain, and it also influenced to my students. Yeah, they haven't seen such rain all their lives, so it is a very stressful way. So I have an idea after listening your presentations. Now I will ask our principal to help us to make a website in which we can put our works, because we also have a green wall at school, by the way, and which also helps our students to understand what is the nature and what is the climate change. So thank you for this idea. We will, of course, make the website and I will share it with you, I hope. Thank you a lot.
Thank you so
Ani,
much. Yeah.
May I just add to something?
Sure.
Thank you so much, Annie, for your comments. One of the things that we had, and I think Debra Rowe also mentioned this at one point, and others, I think, too. One of the things that we need to really think about when we're working with students is the scale at which they understand action. So I love school gardens. I love understanding that and connecting to that in a conceptual level for youth, because they can really see it and make those nature connections. We also need to think with them about how they are connecting to existing collective action in the world. So organizations that might be doing that type of work, because it can be very empowering for youth to know that they are not alone in the individual actions they need to take, but that there are collective actions going on in the world that they can connect to and that are part of their career trajectories as they move into. So what you're talking about with like data around rain, for instance, like being able to bring those scientists like Tatiana's talking about into the learning environment so they can see that science is a part of a career trajectory that can help think about solutions in the more collective sense. Because we find that when we focus on more individual local actions only with youth, that it can be very despair-inducing because they think individually that they're fully responsible. But when we collect it or connect it to collective action or longer term career trajectories, like what we're all talking about here with scientists, that's awesome. It really helps think about like that hope, because it's a whole system moving toward that effort.
Yeah, I quite agree with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Questions, comments? Final remarks, perhaps? Just some sort of an anecdote. When Annie was speaking about this garden they have and how students learn to grow veggies and all, I just recalled that I was told by someone that students, like children in big cities, some of them do not actually have any idea about how vegetables and fruits grow. And for them, it's just something that they can find in a shopping mall, I don't know, in a store, in a grocery store. And for some, it comes as a surprise that you actually have to grow them. So in this regard.
Yes. So
yes, and by the way, we also won the competition. We were in the 3rd place. Our students won the competition, the best garden in Armenia. So I think it was fun for them.
Thank you.
Great. I
Debra?
wanted to add that after spending 42 years teaching sustainable living, as part of the program that I had a certificate that was on sustainable living. I always made sure to connect that to the broader resources of how do you change society, and to empower people to be able to communicate with elected officials if they were in a country that had elected officials, with civic engagement, with understanding what systems change is and how they can be an intrapreneur. So if you look at that clean energy convening site that I gave you, there's the action template is how to be a change agent from within an organization or within the whole society or within multiple countries. That's the kinds of thinking and skills and actions that we need. And it also is what helps young people not be anxious or doomed and gloomed. Look, we got to be real about what's going on here, right? We are in the last few years of taking a shot at stabilizing climate. This isn't just a nice thing that you add into the classroom. This is urgent if we care about human suffering. And so you need to be able to share it with your fellow teachers in such a way that they can take it in, right? If you push too hard, then they may push back. But if you share with your excitement and with tools and you ask for their help, that always tends to produce buy-in. And if they say, I can't do it, we have a wonderful exercise that one of my colleagues shared with me decades ago. We have the teachers in the room, and we say, okay, name a subject you have to teach anyway, a concept you have to teach in your class. Now, let's pick a climate subject. And how can you teach both at the same time? You've got 5 minutes, go. If you get stuck, raise your hand. And what happens within 5 minutes is they start to report out, and invariably, I've done this so many times, 2 teachers raise their hand and say, I'm stuck. So I go over there and I talk to them, but the other ones are very excited about, oh yeah, I could do this. Oh yeah, I've got to teach operant conditioning anyway in my intro to psychology class. So that's really easy to talk about what are the rewards and the punishments that we do for changing our behaviors and as it relates to climate and sustainability. So they then start to share in the room afterwards, after the literally 5 minutes it takes. So you can fit it into any professional development opportunity that's going on or any kind of gathering of the teachers. And then they start to say, oh, I like that. Let me work with you on this. Or, you know, we could do something like this together. Or why don't we do like an all school assembly around this? And why don't we empower the students? Let them help design it. Stop giving them stuff. Instead, do it with the students. So at the end, they have on their resume, we created a positive futures fair. I've seen elementary school students do it. I've seen middle school, and of course, all the way through to all ages. The other piece I just wanted to share with you real quick, and then I'll shush, is that my students would build solar collectors out of recycled materials. And then we would call the TV stations. And what TV stations want to hear is, we have a great visual for you. And so they would come out because they wanted the visual with their cameras, and we ended up on the news. So now you're not just empowering the students and educating them, but you're educating the public at the same time. You can turn your classroom into an open house for the public to come and learn. So thank you, everybody. This has just been great this morning. Those are just a few thoughts. I hope they're helpful.
Many thanks. Yes, I agree with Anastasia about the heart. Thank you for the thoughts, for the quality discussion, as there is a comment in the chat. Yes, there is a question from Ksenia.
Sorry, and not that much a question, but a comment. I loved this webinar very much. I appreciated every single example and every single information that we had today. And also I loved today Miss Debra. Thank you a lot. Thanks a lot. Heart.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, perhaps if there are no more comments, then perhaps it is time to stop the recording. and to, I don't know, either have an informal discussion or enjoy the sleep, the afternoon tea, or whichever it is we have to attend to. Thank you very much for joining in, for being here today, for agreeing to present, for such amount of sources that has been shared with us, and I hope it will somehow get into more and more practical application. All the slides, all the presentations will be later circulated, will be later shared. And I hope that there will be new people in the networks and new users of those sources, resources that have been mentioned today. Thank you so much for being here today, now with us. And please, I don't know, let's keep in touch. And one last thing, perhaps, if we are finishing already, I would like to share the information about one more webinar that is upcoming. It is sadly not about the topic of climate change, but it is also related to, let's say, connecting teachers, connecting schools. Last year, there was a survey of teachers throughout the world about how they use ICTs in education. And the survey gathered around 13,000 answers from all over the world. Previously, 2 weeks ago, there was a webinar with some practical examples of the use of ICT in education. And this webinar that will happen in about a month, on the 19th of July, is going to be about sharing the information that has been collected from those teachers from around the world. And also there will be recommendations shared. So we hope to see teachers, we hope to see people who can influence policymakers as well at that webinar. I will now share the information about the webinar, which is on our site. It is just an invitation to read about it and to perhaps participate. I am now sharing the link to the information on our site. And I suppose this is it. Thank you so much. And I hope we'll keep in touch, and do expect an email from me with all the materials. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.